Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. My name is Ayuba Ilya, and I'm super excited to have you join the show this morning. And of course, not only me, but I believe my co-anchor as well. Hello, Stella.
Hi, and good morning, Nigeria, and I am delighted to be here with you. Thanks for joining us. My name is Stella Iyachi.
Well, today is the 11th day of May 2022, Wednesday, and it's kind of like, I would say, the third day since we are now seeing the resurfacing of the field queues in the Federal Capital Territory.
Yeah. Is it really the third day? Today is Wednesday. The thing started at the weekend from Saturday to Sunday.
Fourth or fifth
We're looking
day.
at day 5, like joke.
Well, this is exactly how the
last time started. We all thought it was going to be short, and then it lasted for over 2 months.
We're hearing assurances from the NNPC as to, number of trucks that they are going to be, releasing to supply fuel across the city. I hope that by the time all of these trucks are released, I will be able to see the queues go away.
Ayuba, the NNPC GM, they said yesterday that we were expecting 100 trucks and that today 150. That will come to about 250, right? My fingers are crossed.
Somewhere I saw 300.
But my fingers are crossed.
Yes, we are hopeful, and I hope that it will disappear as soon as possible, because this is not funny at all. Now let's take a look at the headlines for this morning. Ayade joins presidential race ahead of 2023.
Jonathan not marketable for primary, says Umahi.
I will work for a greater Niger, Blueprint publisher says ahead of Goba primaries.
Now the news in details. Governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayade on Monday expressed confidence that he'll be the next president of the country. Speaking shortly after he received his nomination and expression of interest forms purchased for him by sons and daughters of Cross River State, Ariwa youths, as well as other interest groups across the country's 6 geopolitical zones, Ayade said he would replicate his successes as a state governor at the national level and help address the country's myriad of challenges. He said he will engage Nigerians on the basis of what he has done and not on promises or statistics that have no physical or verifiable evidence.
I don't want Afropolitan theory. I want Afrosionism, which is my construction to reflect the time for Africans to look back into Africa, look inwards and look upwards, but never look left or right, because Africa can solve African problems. Yes, sir. It is time for our epicenter philosophy to refocus on Africa, and we can only do that when Nigeria begins to change. Nigeria is the example for all black race. So I believe that opportunity has come when an intellectual, an academic, a businessman, a lawyer, a man with the fear of God, a knight, an senator, vice true, who comes with a lot of knowledge, intellect, exposure, and everything that inspired. I have the central connection. I have a perfect relationship with the person. For those who know me very well, you don't give because you have enough. You give because you care. Wow. And you don't care because you have enough. But if you sincerely care, you give your right eye to follow your work. The wheels of progress in Nigeria has not begun to come. As I will concentrate and engage Nigeria, I will engage them on the basis of what I've done, but not on promises and not on statistics. And we will do so with videos and pictures. So for those who don't know, will know. The longest plant carriage road ever constructed by a Nigerian governor is done by my humble self, the governor of Cross River State, with nothing. A world-class digital airport that will soon be up and running at 80% completion, done by a state with federal allocation. That's right. A state without anything, without loan, floated an airline with 2 aircraft on ground. I will list on and Nigerians will start asking, how did you do it? Yes. You will now understand why my colleagues call me magician. I thank you all for this work. Yes, sir.
Well, interesting side there. Now, Governor Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State has expressed concern over the kind of messages the ruling All Progressive Congress will be telling Nigerians with former President Goodluck Jonathan as its presidential candidate. The governor spoke Tuesday while fielding questions from State House reporters after meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja to present a thank you letter from Southeast leaders to him following his recent visit to Ebonyi. He wondered how the APC will reconcile its policies and promises with those of the People's Democratic Party under which Jonathan was present. He expressed worry that it will be difficult for the ruling party to campaign with Jonathan as its presidential candidate, adding that his entrance into the race for the APC presidential ticket will be germane in Nigeria's political landscape.
It will, for me, become one of the wonders, of this century. The reason is that if you go and see the campaign, programs of APC, and you now ask Mr. President Jonathan to come and run, I don't know what will be our campaign promises and what will be, the stories we'll be telling Nigerians. And I believe strongly that he was not aware of, the form. And I want to believe that people that are mischievous would have bought the forms to embarrass him. But from what I read, he has quickly distanced himself, from that. But like I said, if that is not the case, then the Guinness Book of Records is not totally filled up.
Well, it's quite interesting, the events leading up to the primary elections. We are waiting in a few weeks' time. And a whole lot really is happening.
It's going to be a very interesting period between now and then.
You hear the digital governor earlier on.
Telling us what he's going to do when he becomes president. Exactly. And he assured that he is sure that he's going to be president.
Well, and then also, of course, we're seeing reactions,
state governor.
Reactions following what happened about the former President Goodluck Jonathan. And we're just seeing Governor Dave Umahi now, saying this. Well, I wonder where he was when all the speculations about, the former president, being interested in vying for that office. That speculation has been there for months.
Yes,
and
but they remember.
It's now that we are knowing that it would have been,
but there
the
remains
miracle of the century.
Well, Ayuba, the way I see it is a bit different. There remains speculations, that's one. Then he's a voice within the party. So he may be feeling this way, but there may be other people in the party that feel that, okay, Jonathan is our, like someone said yesterday, he could be their winning formula, So I want to believe that he's speaking his views on this issue.
Of course, it is his views. But, as to campaign promises, I wonder if campaign promises in Nigeria have ever changed.
Yeah, but he
since
said,
the 1960s, they've always been the same campaign promises for anybody.
Yeah, but he said something fundamental. The former president, Goodluck Jonathan, went into an election on the platform of the PDP with the APC in 2015, and they said certain things. They said no, the APC at that time said a lot of things to decampaign him. So what are they going to say this time around to say,
Stella, don't forget that we had a one-time spokesman of the PDP who always releases statements castigating the APC, himself joining the APC and even becoming a senator under the same party that he has always castigated.
Yeah, that's the situation in Nigeria, sadly. I always think about it that if it were other crimes, you'll be held accountable for the things that you have said and the things that you have done. But in Nigeria, it appears you say this thing today and it's okay for you to come back tomorrow and do a 360.
And pretend like you never said them.
What about your conscience, though? Even if nobody is saying, okay, no, how about your conscience? Okay, well, let's look at...
Someone said that there is no morality in politics. I don't know where that came from, though.
Yeah, I think that's what some people say to get away with the things that they want to do. Let's take a look at this other story. Now, the publisher of Blueprint Newspapers Limited and gubernatorial aspirant of the ruling All Progressive Congress in Niger State, Mohammed Idris Malagi, has said that if given the party's mandate, he would work from his first hour in office as governor to achieve his agenda of a greater Niger State. Malagi, who addressed the media while submitting his nomination and expression of interest forms to APC executives at the International Conference Center, Abuja, said Niger State is by far one of the frontline states in Nigeria, given its abundant human and natural resources, and promised to unleash the capacity of the people of the state to propel it to an enviable position in the Committee of States in Nigeria. Malagi, who is the publisher of Blueprint newspaper and public relations practitioner, is a top contender in the forthcoming governorship primary election of the APC in Niger State.
I've discovered the various challenges that our great people have. Of course, there are also hope for great opportunities, and so we have analyzed all, and we are bringing all to the table in the interest of our communities, in the interest of our government, in the interest of Nigeria. We shall make Nigeria great. We shall make Niger State great by God's grace. There is so much planned for in terms of security. As you know, Niger is one of those states that are facing serious problems of security. We have great plans for them. We're going to work in collaboration with security agencies, in collaboration with other government, state governments, in collaboration with the federal government to ensure that our peace return to our communities, peace return to our state, peace return to Nigeria.
Well, I'm sure still talking about the same thing, politics, and ahead of the 2023 elections.
I think Nigerians should be recording all these promises that have been made at this time. You know, he said he's going to unleash the potentials of the people of Niger State, you know, to propel the state. I mean, these are very good promises, and, you know.
I mean, the promises have always been there. I mean, we do not lack words to promise. That's the truth about
Well, you
Nigeria.
know, it's important that you record this thing so that you can hold the person to it when he comes into office. That, okay, this was one of the reasons I voted for you. This was even why I picked up my voter's card and said, okay, it's, you're the man for the job.
True.
You know.
Very, very true. Nigerians should hold, you know, politicians to account. Yeah. Especially during this period of making promises. It's time to make promises. Now, talking about politics, the president is back in Abuja from Abidjan, where he attended the summit of heads of state and government, and at the 15th conference, you know, of the parties at the United Nations Convention to combat desertification. According to the president, Nigeria has successfully forested over 6 million hectares of land through its Green Bond project. Let's take a look at this report put together by Kendi Amodu.
Back in Abuja after 2 days of talks on advancing Great Green Wall objectives in Nigeria, President Buhari must be a satisfied man. Nigeria has been able to reel out achievements it has made to play its part in checking desertification on its lands. The United Nations, acknowledging the progress made, is giving conditions that must define its collaboration with member countries on this project.
If you permit me, I would say there's perhaps 4 or 5 issues that are important to this. The first is the importance of the governance structures at the local government where one wants to make the investments in each and every one of these countries. The second is a focus on land restoration, and land restoration that has a focus on the economic activities, the capacities particularly of young people and of our women at the community level to engage with these investments that will come to that level.
The target is to fulfill the nation's forest cover to 25% to fulfill a pledge made at the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2019. This will require planting 25 million trees towards achieving restoration of degraded forest reserves and other landscapes nationwide. The Nigerian government hopes to partner with the World Bank and has expended enormous resources to establish agricultural development programs in all 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory.
I therefore call on you, especially the World Bank, African Development Bank, and the One Planet Summit Initiative to support this drive. So going forward, I kindly request your commitment to support this initiative. B, I also invite you collectively to set up a task team to work with PAGGW in this direction.
The message of this summit may be lost on many Nigerians who are fixated on their harsh economic realities, but the message goes beyond Nigeria's border and insists that the international community must demonstrate enough political will and commitment towards the realization of the pledge to restore 1 billion hectares of land by 2030. This will no doubt save humanity from starvation and preserve the planet for future generations. Kehinde Amudu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
And that's a good report by Kehinde Amudu. You know, we cannot shy away from the climate issues.
I mean, we're visibly seeing the impacts of the climate on our economy already, you know, on our agricultural sector.
We cannot pretend that it's not a danger, you know. It's something that every country should take seriously.
It is, and my hope is that all the discussions and all the agreements, we should see full implementation on some of these agreements, because some of the issues, some of the challenges has always been about implementing whatever has been discussed.
Because I want to believe that there are loads of agreements on climate change, but then the issue is, after signing them, what next? Is it that you just sign and then you dump them?
And sometimes funding and, you know, finances stand in the way of implementing some of these things, because
then it requires political will. You have to take it seriously. You have to understand that it's a problem, you know, so that it can be. So, and now we'll move to agriculture. Our next report says Nigerian women play a vital role in food production in Nigeria. According to reports, women constitute 70 to 80% of the agri-labor force in the country and are often faced with myriads of challenges. Fatima Saleh reports on how Kaduna State government empowered some women with farming materials. Take a look at the report.
Although a high percentage of women are engaged in agricultural activities, they are often neglected and may have to rely on the old system of farming, finding it difficult to access loans without male guarantors. To change the narrative and give them a boost, some women in agribusiness in Kaduna State are empowered by the state government with farming materials and equipments such as maize seedlings, beans, granules, amongst others. While distributing the materials, the Deputy Governor Hajia Hadiza Balarabi charged them to make judicious use of the materials.
I congratulate the beneficiaries of this support, and I urge you to make judicious use of the seeds and the materials that will be given to you today. Remember that to the one who is faithful with little, more will be added.
Attention is being given to women's entrepreneurship as part of the empowerment agenda and to expand opportunities for them. The goal for us would be to help women access the knowledge, tools and connections they need to achieve greater economic independence.
Commissioner of Agriculture Kaduna State says this will assist in attaining food sufficiency as well as create jobs for women.
The effort of Kaduna State to ensure that this has complemented the efforts being done by Kaduna State government to improve agricultural productivity and production, to empower women, to improve and enhance livelihood and address poverty issues.
Reports say women produce the bulk of food for domestic consumption and are believed to be the drivers of food processing, marketing, and presentations. Fatima Saleh, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
Well, thank you, Fatima Saleh, for that report. It's an interesting one, talking about empowering women to go into agriculture. that's also an important aspect of our food production. And I believe that if we can have more people in that venture, well, we're going to be able to be
self-sufficient. And look at the cost of food items in the market now. So
yes, hopefully we'll see a decline in the inflation. Yes, and commendable of the Kaduna State government to actually engage in empowering some of these women. But I saw a wheelbarrow.
Maybe to move some of the items during harvest.
Okay, that's fine.
Just saying.
Okay, that's fine. It's one of those things that you need anyways. Yeah, I'm looking forward to more of that. As they say, Oliver Twist will always, ask for more. Now, we will be taking a short breather, and then when we come back, this time we'll look at the stories on the front pages of our newspapers this month, just to have a sense of what it looks like in our national discourse.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. Now we take a look at the stories on the front pages of our papers, beginning with Daily Trust newspaper. Now on Daily Trust, the lead story is political. It says, ahead of APC primaries, campaign governance compete for attention. The writer says Osibanjo, Amechi, Onu, Ingige, others battle for delegates. Aides collecting allowances from government. Government has literally fallen apart, and that's according to Carey. If you want more details of that, you pick a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper. Stories below the masthead. You'd see also primaries. INEC rejects party's request to extend deadline by 2 months. And then why turnaround maintenance failed to bring refineries to life, according to the NNPC. Also other stories. The pictorial in particular shows you victims of rainstorm which killed 5 persons and wounded many others in Damaturu, Yobe, and that was on Monday. Below that, uneasy calm as PDP NEC takes decision on zoning today. That is on page 13 of the Daily Trust newspaper. The next one at the very bottom, ASU strike, 2009 agreements unrealistic, says Senate President. Court nullifies FG's sales of recovered assets. Train attack, 1 week after Buhari's directive. Victims' families yet to get updates. So these are some of the stories on the front page of Daily Trust this morning. But, quite interesting how there is a request by political parties for INEC to extend, the deadline by 2 months.
I was surprised when I saw that
issue. We have seen INEC
yesterday.
roll out the timetable.
Yes.
With, specific deadlines for every activity.
And they have been emphatic about it that, look, follow our guidelines. We are serious about this. So I was surprised. And the INEC chairman, in declining this request, he said something. He said, if we extend this, it's going to affect other things. So it's not about just extending this deadline now by 2 months, or actually I saw 37 days, but it's not about just extending this, because when you extend it, it's going to affect another extension, and then it's going to cause another extension.
Yes.
Who knows?
And let's not forget
you may end up saying move the election,
Exactly. And let's not forget too that some of these timelines are embedded in the Constitution. The Constitution already spelled how many days.
So there must be this gap before this takes place.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, all of that is
so think about the implication of that.
That was what the INEC chairman said.
That's not
declining
practical.
the request.
I mean, itself, the Electoral Act, after it was assented to, you could see how it has also affect the proposals that INEC already had, as regards the 2023 election. So that's why politicians should not think that they can actually be smart about some of these things, because
it shouldn't always be business as usual. There are guidelines, dates have been put there and all of that. I think they can work around it if,
True. So, well, INEC is saying no anyways to those requests, and we're about to see that the primaries will take place in a few weeks from now. INEC is expecting nominees for all political parties in less than a month.
The deadline is June 3rd. So between now and June 3rd, everybody has to do what they need to do to submit the names of their candidates.
So perhaps the declaration spree that we are seeing would have ended by then.
Yes.
We see a lot of people declaring intention to run, picking forms here and there. Well, the next story there is also an interesting one, talking about the NNPC boss explaining to members of the House of Representatives as to why the turnaround maintenance on the country's refineries are not, effective. And he's pointing to, the poor execution of the turnaround maintenance. And it's sad that if you look at the humongous amount that is usually being budgeted for this turnaround maintenance, and yet it's not working at the end of the day.
Okay, we're talking poor execution. If at the first instance money was paid and then it was poorly executed, what happened the next time? Because government has been spending a lot of money on turnaround, and these refineries do not produce anything. I mean, we keep importing
refined. It's more like a dead weight on government.
We keep importing refined crude. So if it's poor execution, maybe we should put a stop to it already. Because, I mean, money is being spent, right?
And a lot of people have said, well, if Nigeria can actually subsidize, petroleum at the cost of at least ₦1 trillion every year, the Dangote refinery, from what we gather, is about the same amount.
You saw there was this report by the Daily Trust newspaper not too long ago where it put side by side the money spent on subsidy and the money the Dangote refinery is taking. I mean, there's not much difference.
So imagine what Nigeria spent in the last 4 years on subsidy, or say maybe in the last 7 years of this administration on subsidy. We are talking more than ₦7 trillion, right? That would have built at least 5 refineries. 4 or 5
refineries, and then
for Nigeria,
and then
from scratch.
And you look at it this way, and the advantage to Nigeria would have been, it's a lot, so that each time the price of crude goes up in the international market, we can join other countries in rejoicing. But now each time it goes up, we panic when others are rejoicing because we know we're going to pay more in subsidy.
And perhaps, who knows, maybe with the crisis between Russia and Ukraine now, Nigeria would have
been the place to go.
Do business with the European or the West.
I think we need to think far. We need to think out of the box. We need to think for the future that, okay, if something happens, what next?
Totally, I agree with you. All right, now, also the lead story talks about governance and campaigns competing for attention. Of course, as expected, virtually all the governors in the APC have declared intention to run for the presidency, and we're seeing that also alongside, on the other side.
I agree. Governance and campaigns are competing for attention, and I see campaign taking the lead here.
Of course, it is
because nobody appears to care about any other thing happening in the country at the moment.
Of course, a lot of people have talked about, like just yesterday we saw families of victims of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack, calling for the resignation of the Minister of Transportation.
Yeah.
Because as far as they are concerned, it is just, few days after that attack that we saw that the Minister of Transportation was somewhere in Rivers declaring his intention to run for the presidency.
And you know one thing
and he's not the only one. No. A lot of people have also talked about the Minister of State for Education who has also declared intention to
run. His direct employees are on strike.
Is on strike.
Students are home.
These meetings about...
Do you know what I wonder? What I wonder is, why abandon governance, abandon the country and campaign? There has to be a country for you to govern, right? So if in the process of focusing on campaign, things go so bad that, what happens? Like the Sultan said not long ago, he said that if the issue of insecurity is not taken seriously, there may be no 2023. So there are issues that should be looked into while campaigning alongside, not,
Now,
in fact, they shouldn't be competing.
Talking about campaigns, I think that perhaps this is an opportunity for, some of the campaigners to, get the support of some Nigerians. Now, if you look at ASU, for instance, the Senate President is also saying that the 2009 agreement between the ASU and federal government is unrealistic.
Yeah.
So if after 10 years, or more than 10 years, 2009 to now, we are talking about 12,
yeah,
13 years. And
a lot has changed between then and now.
a lot has changed. So if the government in those days felt that, okay, it's fair enough to have that agreement at that time, with the dollar rate as it was at that time, how come this government feels that it is unrealistic?
Well, what I even thought...
Is it a question of priority here?
What I even thought was that the 2009 agreement was renegotiated by this same government in 2020. So that agreement that was reached in 2020 is what ASU is asking for its implementation at this point. So what ASU is now asking for is that renegotiated agreement of 2009, which was done in 2020.
In 2020. So,
yes.
So ASU is not even talking about 2009.
No, it has been renegotiated in 2020. So what what ASU is asking for now, implement that 2020 agreement.
And we're not seeing that agreement happening.
At all.
Instead, we're seeing more committees being set up. One was set up in February this year, another one in March this year, all to look into the issue of ASU's grievances. And from what we heard from ASU, yesterday we spoke with the chairman of the Abuja chapter of ASU at the University of Abuja, and he said that there have never been any meeting between ASU and the committee that was set up, the 3-man committee set up by the president back in February, comprising the chief of staff, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the Minister of Education, Adamu Adamu, and the Minister of Labor, Chris Ngige, who is also a presidential aspirant anyways.
One thing that I'm not comfortable with is the fought and back between ASU and the federal government. The federal government says one thing, ASU says, no, it's not true. If that keeps happening, how are we going to get a solution out of this? The two parties need to come to the table and say, okay, this is what it is that we're going to do. But a situation where government will say, we called for a meeting, ASU will say, no meeting was called. You don't really know exactly what is going on.
Exactly. Well, we hope that, we find a lasting solution to this so that students at least will, have some breath of fresh air. It's gone too far. And
the danger of keeping students at home is enormous. I mean, we're talking about insecurity at the moment, and then you keep students at home for 6 months.
We talk about cyber crime.
They can be easy recruits for anything.
Well, quite a lot really on our papers this morning. Let's take a look at more papers.
Let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper now. The Leadership newspaper has the story here. 19 days to party primaries. Senate amends Electoral Act, makes president, governors, others statutory delegates. Then the story here, it says, PDP NEC holds crucial meeting over zoning today. And on the top left of the paper, we have 2023, Southwest, South-South aspirants betraying Southeast, says Umahi. NANS gives federal government ASU 9 days to open varsities. Then we have the story here, an update on the fuel situation. It says fuel scarcity extends to northern states. Well, I think it has been in the northern states since Friday, Then we have, there's this other story. May 29 handover is sacrosanct, says presidency. Then an update on this alleged murder story. Chidima confessed to drug and stabbing, killing Ataga, police tell court. Ayuba, the PDP NEC today is a very crucial meeting. For me, I think it's a make or mar meeting.
Yes, and we hope that we get to know what happens in that meeting. Because these days it looks like the political parties are not really open to telling you their strategies.
Well, this particular one is on zoning, and you know what zoning has been like in the country in the past few weeks.
And both political parties, from what we are seeing, are both waiting for each other to see who is going to make the first move. So that the other knows how they are going to also strategically position themselves to have an advantage.
The thing about the zoning thing in the PDP is that they are divided on it. Some people say, don't zone, just throw it open and may the best man win. Some people say it should be zoned. So what I'm thinking is, if the party now says we're zoning, the other aggrieved persons, what will happen? And if the party says we're not zoning, the other people that want it to be zoned, what is going to happen? So either way, it's a very crucial
it stands to be in favor of some and not in favor of some.
Yes.
Yeah, and the same goes for the APC as well. I'm sure that they just have to take that decision, and we are really waiting and looking forward to it. A lot of Nigerians are waiting, actually, for those decisions to be made.
And then there's this Senate Amends Electoral Act, makes president, governors, other statutory delegates. I saw the efficacy and how efficient the Senate was in amending this this act yesterday.
Yes.
This
the Senate
section 84
says,
subsection 8.
The Senate said it is an unintended error.
Yes, they said it was an unintended error.
Yes.
But the dispatch with which it was handled, I just wish every other bill would
have that kind of attention.
Yes, because the Senate did theirs yesterday. The House of Reps is reconvening today to do the same thing, because, it has to be done before the primaries, right?
Well, if you look at it, this one has, that direct impact.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Every other bill should have that kind of attention. They came in and it was amended.
Yeah, except that this one, well, every bill may not, because this one is more political, and we have a short time to the primaries, and I'm wondering how the error occurred in the first place.
They said it was unintended.
Yeah, I heard that, but how did it happen? But I guess it's in the interest of our political structure, isn't it? Nobody should be disenfranchised.
It was a good thing it was amended, though, because if they had gone with the electoral act as it was, all these people would not have been able to take part in the primaries.
True.
Yeah.
All right. Also, we have other stories from, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. On the Nation newspaper, quite a number of stories this morning. The lead story, it's about politics again, as always. In this past few days, the stories have always been about, political affairs ahead of the 2023 general elections. Now, the lead story says, uncertainty in APC over Jonathan Emefiele and Adesina. You would see the writers that says, Adamu declines ex-president's proposal. CBN governor in dilemma, AFDB president mom, submission of forms closes. You will also see INEC rejects party's request for adjustment of polls timetable. Now, at the very top, above the masthead, you would see why refineries are moribund by NNPC. Also, Electoral Act amendment. Amendment widens primaries participants. Navy arrest 117 suspected oil thieves, 6 vessels. More protest over ASU strike extension. These are some of the stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. And, well, it's quite interesting how the conversation about Jonathan purported decamping to the APC is generating a lot of reactions, and even that of the CBN governor, of course. For the Jonathan, one of the stories says that Adamu rejects, he declines ex-president's proposal. So I'm curious about what that proposal is.
Well,
is the proposal to join the APC or the proposal to run as president on the platform of the APC?
The speculations that, is being bandied about is that the proposal was that the ex-president asked that if he's to join the party and run on the, if he's to join the party and pick the form, he should be allowed to contest, just be given the ticket, like a consensus candidate. He should be adopted as the consensus candidate. But then it's, that's what we're hearing.
That's far from, well, if that's true, then I don't think that's fair.
But if that's the proposal, if that's a proposal, then I would expect that there will be a lot of kickback, because some persons have been in the party all this while and they have been hoping that such a time will come where they will be able to contest, you know. So it may not be that easy to cede the tickets to him.
I mean, morally speaking, would it be fair? I mean,
morally also, it will not be fair.
It will not be fair. I mean, if you have other people who believe that they have worked hard for the party since its creation, and they've been eyeing that office under the same platform, and then you come from, well, I won't say nowhere, but you know,
well, you just joined the party.
You just joined the party,
and morally, it will be a tough one.
Yeah, but if the former president decides to, you know, come up with his own political party,
well, at this time,
it's not too late.
Is Anna going to accept anything at this point?
Anyway,
it is too late.
It's not going to get registered. Yes, that's true.
You know,
but maybe from way back, maybe before now, if all of this was intended, then maybe perhaps better preparations should have been made, so that the president can be able to, the former president can be able to vie.
I'm curious too. Ruling a country, especially one as big as Nigeria, is it something you can just decide overnight? I would think that it would be something that you would have thought about, you would have planned towards, you know, you have drawn up an agenda of the things that you're going to do, so that when you come in, you just hit the ground running.
Yeah, well, it mustn't always be lifelong ambition. Like,
no, but what I'm trying to say is that at least there must be planning.
Yeah, but where you know, you got a chance to serve in certain capacities.
Yeah.
And you know, perhaps there are people who have seen that you are doing well and feel that they should give you their support and decide to call you to serve. I mean, in such scenarios, you
know why I'm asking this? You know why I'm asking this? Because I've seen certain people say they have bought forms for them and they want to consult, they want to see whether it is something they want to do. And I'm thinking, the job of presidency...
Well, perhaps they say that...
the job of presidency, isn't it a bit more serious than that?
Perhaps they say that maybe because at the center of it all is the people. If you want to serve the people, you must put the people in the middle of all that you are doing.
Yes, but I want to imagine that. But I want to imagine that when you're on the side, you're thinking, oh, this thing is not going on well. Okay, this is what I would like to do, or this is what I would do when I get there. This is not going on well. This is what I'll do, and this is how I'll go about it. So that, you know, when you know...
that's when you have now made...
There's a concrete plan.
Yes, the consultations should have happened before you now begin to...
Do you know what? Someone wants to be a story, and he's one of my bosses, that a certain governor of a certain state in Nigeria got elected and invited this, you know, person and said, please help me draw up an agenda. And he said to the governor, Your Excellency, you've already assumed office. I was thinking you had an agenda. I said, no, that's why I called you, draw up one. At that point, you will know that, is this governor going to... Anyway.
Well, it's the same, you know, for a lot of, you know, our politicians.
Politicians, yeah.
Yeah, that the interest is just about getting the, you know, office, getting the office. Eventually get the office, and then what?
Exactly.
You know,
it's not just about getting there. That's my concern. You have to have a plan.
I agree totally. All right, let's take a look at other papers this morning. The News Direct, Nigerian News Direct, also has some interesting stories. It leads with the story that says 500 billion naira transportation claims. Fuel scarcity looms nationwide as marketers threaten to shut down operations. Parties must have roundtable discussions to avert artificial scarcity. That's according to Ahindero. Also, at the top, above the masthead, you see ASU strike. Senate will bring back FG ASU to negotiation table. That's according to the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan. And then you also have insurance policy. IGP restates commitment to better welfare for police officers. May 29 handover date is sacrosanct, according to the federal government. This is coming against the backdrop of the speculation, or rather the advocacy for the president to remain in office to be able to tackle the security issues, in the country. And I recall that's by Robert Clark.
Yes, I saw that as well.
Yeah, one of the elder statesmen, that the president should be given more time. So that he can
I'm happy the federal government is coming out to say May 29 is sacrosanct. And I believe that elder statesmen need to stop making this call so that we just go with the Constitution and, do what the Constitution has provided for. Exactly. Not too long ago, another elder statesman called for an interim government after the current administration elapses. And, both of these things are not constitutional.
Yeah, well, they are not, but arguably...
Let's follow the Constitution.
Arguably, there are other ways you can...
Let's just stick also, to the Constitution.
With respect to the one about the interim government, you can set up an interim government to look into the Constitution itself. So if you look at his argument, basically what he is saying, is about the need to, look at, overhaul the Nigerian Constitution.
Yes, but we can... No, but as the Constitution is as at today, we can do an election based on it. We don't have to wait and amend the Constitution, and even because of that, have an interim government to do that.
Yes, Stella, but the argument has always been that the Constitution that we are operating in Nigeria
was handed down to us by the military.
And does not really, capture the will of the people per se.
Well, let's look for how to capture it. That is why there's constitutional amendment going on. We can capture the will of the people within that amendment.
Some believe that the constitutional amendment does not do justice the way it should be.
But
like the kind of changes that is required, the kind of changes that is required, if you go by a constitutional amendment, they may not happen
we do not
the way
an
it is
interim government. Shouldn't we be talking about deepening our democracy? An interim government is not going to help deepen Nigeria's democracy. It's going to take us backward, if you ask me.
That's an argument anyways.
I know.
And a lot of people are, putting up the same argument. Some are for, some are against, the overhauling of the Constitution. Now, other stories, FIRS calls for increased collaboration within African countries to effectively tax digital businesses. That's still on the news, Nigerian News Direct. And then the last story there, Gulf of Guinea, NIMASA, Navy, ICC collaborate on shared awareness, deconfliction. So that's that for the News Direct.
Okay, maybe let's take a look at the national economy. The major story there says non-payment of 500 billion transport claims may escalate fuel scarcity. That's coming from the marketers. We also have federal government crashes price of aviation fuel for airlines to 480 naira per litre. Beneath the pictorial, we have PITAD begins verification of pensioners of defunct BOA. E-Naira will hasten rates of financial inclusion, says CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele. Dangote Industries gets positive AA rating from Fitch. Those are the major stories on national economy for today.
All right. Well, that's that for the first round of newspaper review. We'll take a look at some more later on the program. By that time, we'll be having our reviewer here in the studio. For now, let's take a look at My Daily Hustle, one of the segments that brings us insight on how Nigerians are faring from day to day in fending for themselves. Take a look.
My name is Tony Obonna. I'm from Imo State, Ngokba local government. I'm into welding and fabrication. After my secondary school, when I live with my uncle in Kaduna. Here I do my ND on welding and fabrication. So where I trained, he trained me on welding and fabrication because he has the welding workshop in Kaduna there. That's where I undergo the training from 15 years. Then after my JSS, so while I'm in secondary school, I'm inside it. I'm looking at my uncle as my role model. You understand? I'm looking towards to grow more than him. He's into industrial welding. That's why now even I can do industrial and I can do light welding. After my JSS, that's where I joined him in Kaduna. So and I go while I'm doing my secondary school and also after school I joined him. So after my secondary school, I now joined him fully. So which I passed through 2 years full there before I started receiving salary on welding work. Now it's close 20 years. For now, my experience from this skill, I can be able to marry and build my house in my village and also here in Nasarawa State where I live. It's profitable. If you can calm down, you know, if you can cool down and learn and get the skill and what is inside it. But there are a lot of challenges.
What are they?
Good. Like, you know, young boys now, when they come in, we have like this spark light, the light. If you contact it on your eye, the thing will make you sleepless night, all through night. But when you take the drugs, the thing will calm down to the following day. It was like someone contacting Apollo. You cannot be able to close your eye. If you open eye in the night, it was like the whole sand on the earth is on your eye. The first day I got the experience, I decided not to go back to that shop again because there's nothing I can do than to go there because I'm living with him. Then, so after some time, now told me what to on and what not to do. I have to cover my eyes with a shade. And whether I'm the one welding or another person welding, I have to shade my eye. That's why I'm always on black glass. As you can see, metal work, anywhere you are, because the only thing advice is do is you don't fight, because anything on the ground is a weapon. It's an hazardous area and also a hot job material. So anything you see as hard can wound you, or can take you anything. So you have to be careful and watch your steps on anything you are doing, because we do with electricity and iron metals. The worst experience I have when we are doing erection, I have a challenge where I fell down from roof. We are doing steel roofing. That was in 2008, thereabout. That was the only worst experience I had. I nearly lost my life because had it been I fell down directly, I would have lost my life. So that cautioned us, if you are up, don't be panic. You don't panic, you finish. I can go on 100 meters above ground, so don't panic. So because of the fear, I'm panic. That's how got me that one. I have many guys. I train many boys, and also even from my village and also outside my village. Some people come and go because of the light issue. That's what scared people away. But if you can endure it the first and second time, you get used to it. Like now, me, I don't think I can wear without shade, and I will not contact the lights because I know when I want to wear and when I don't want to wear. But when I want to apply burn the electrode, I need to close my eye. After my apprenticeship, I came to Abuja. That was 2001. I spent 3 years there before I joined as a joint man. The man now took me to Lagos. I served him there for years before coming back again to Abuja. So where I'm in Lagos, I work in a company. I work about 3 companies. I just want to stay on my own. I don't want to work under somebody again. While in Lagos, I work with somebody, and also I work with, after I joined companies. So I decided to settle down on my own. Like now, I have about 6 workers that work with me under me, especially industrial work when I get industrial work, but they are not permanently with me. Like when I got those industrial work, I can take them to site, we go and work, and fabricate and erect and come back. So I think I have 4 of them are married under me. If you can work, if you have the strength and you can work, the ability to work. As I said, it's a hard work and a hard job, and also it involves risk. You have to be careful if you are doing welding work, especially when we are doing erection or the steel roofing, fleet station canopies, rafters, like antennas. So you have to be very careful when you are going up. My customers, they are number one of my people that I know that they are the one, and that's why I'm here. Because of my customers, I need to treat them well. I do so that I make sure that I keep them. If there's any other job they come, as I was speaking, I just came back from Plateau State. In January, I was in Onitsha. Also fabricating and fabrication. You understand? So I don't think if you are not treating your customers, I don't think you can't exist. If you mess up the first person, mess up the second, the news will go around. Like this place we are now, we have chairman, which because I'm the financial secretary, we are in union here. You don't mess up. If you mess up with the customers, we will drive you out of this place. For me to take any apprentice since, I think for over 10 years now, at least you must get up to JSS, that you can read their measurements, because it needs calculation. At least you can be able to know tapes, read the tapes, because the tapes you are using, all line has a number. So you can read and calculate, know how many lengths of pipe that can give you, how many this one can give you one burglary proof. You can come, you're welcome. We have some students also. After school, they join us. We welcome that also. As you can see, most of these boys you are seeing here now, they are students, secondary school students. So after school, they come. For now, at least in Nigeria, not only in Nigeria, self-employed is the lucrative business for now. You don't need a white-collar job. Where are they? There's no white-collar job. But at least after school, my junior brother is a mechanical engineer, chemical engineer, but today he's self-employed on his own. You have to go and learn something. If you cannot go to school, you go and learn. If not welding work, other jobs. Like here, we are not only welding work. We have painters here. We have cooler systems. People that do cooler systems, like all these produce ice block machines. We have carpenters here on this our line.
All right, it's top of the hour, 7 a.m., and you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayuba Ilya. I'm not alone in the studio, as always.
Thanks for joining us. That is, if you're just joining us, the Daybreak show starts at 6 a.m. every day of the week. My name is Stella Iyaji.
Yes, and we've been here for like an hour now. And if you're just joining, well, let's just take a look at the headlines for you. Again, Ayade joins presidential race ahead of the 2023 elections.
Jonathan not marketable for primary, says Umahi.
Buhari rejects call for tenure extension, vows to step down next year.
Now the news in details. Governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayade, on Monday expressed confidence that he will be next president of the country. Speaking shortly after he received his nomination and expression of interest forms, purchased for him by sons and daughters of Cross River State, Arewa youths, as well as other interest groups across the country's 6 geopolitical zones. Ayade said he would replicate his successes as a state governor at the national level and help address the country's myriad of challenges. He said he will engage Nigerians on the basis of what he has done and not on promises or statistics that have no physical or verifiable evidence.
Governor.
I don't want Afropolitan theory. I want Afrosionism, which is my construction to reflect the time for Africans to look back into Africa, look inwards, look upwards, but never look left or right. Because Africa can solve African problems. Yes, sir. It is time for our epicenter philosophy to refocus on Africa. And you can only do that when Nigeria begins to change. Nigeria is the example for all black race. So I believe that opportunity has come when an intellectual, an academic, a businessman, a lawyer, a man with the fear of God, a knight, yes, ascending throne, that is true, who comes with a lot of knowledge, intellect, exposure, and everything that inspires. I have the central connection. I have a perfect relationship with the person. For those who know me very well, you don't give because you have enough. You give because you care. Wow. And you don't care because you have enough. But if you sincerely care, you give your right eye to honor your work. The wheels of progress in Nigeria has not begun to come. As I will concentrate and engage Nigeria, I will engage them on the basis of what I've done, but not on promises and not on statistics. And we will do so with videos and pictures. So for those who don't know, will know. The longest plant carriage road ever constructed by a Nigerian governor is done by my humble self.
Meanwhile, Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State has expressed concern over the kind of messages the ruling All Progressives Congress will be telling Nigerians with the former President Goodluck Jonathan as its presidential candidate. The governor spoke Tuesday while fielding questions from State House reporters after meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja to present a thank you letter from Southeast leaders to him following his recent visit to Ebonyi. He wondered how the APC will reconcile its policies and promises with those of the People's Democratic Party under which Jonathan was president. He expressed worry that it will be difficult for the ruling party to campaign with Jonathan as its presidential candidate, adding that his entrance into the race for the APC presidential ticket will be germane in Nigeria's political landscape.
It will, for me, become one of the wonders, of this century. The reason is that if you go and see the campaign, programs of APC, and you now ask Mr. President Jonathan to come and run, I don't know what will be our campaign promises and what will be, the stories we'll be telling Nigerians. And I believe strongly that he was not aware of, the form. And I want to believe that people that are mischievous would have bought the forms to embarrass him. But from what I read, he has quickly, distanced himself, from that. But like I said, if that is not the case, then the Guinness Book of Records is not totally filled up.
Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has said there is no going back on leaving office after completing his constitutionally guaranteed tenure, emphasizing that the May 29, 2023 handover date is sacrosanct. Speaking through Malam Garba Shehu, his media aide, Buhari said the current administration would honor the Constitution and people's right to decide. His reaction follows the suggestions of Chief Robert Clark, a senior advocate of Nigeria, that the Constitution should be suspended for a new one. Clark had said the president could extend his tenure by 6 months if insecurity could affect the 2023 general elections. But the president said the suggestion on the need to suspend the Constitution might create crisis and instability.
All right, now that's that. Now let's take a look at some more stories. President Muhammadu Buhari has said that there is no going back on leaving office after completing his constitutionally guaranteed tenure, emphasizing that the May 29, 2023 handover date is sacrosanct. Speaking through Malam Garba Shehu, his media aide, Buhari said the current administration will honor the Constitution and the people's right to decide. His reaction follows the suggestion of Chief, I beg your pardon, that's the same story you just read. Well, another story there that we'll take a look at the President Muhammadu Buhari's story again, which says that the president is back in Abuja from Abidjan, where he attended the summit of heads of state and government, the 15th Conference of Parties, ahead of the United Nations Convention to combat desertification. According to the president, Nigeria had successfully forested over 6 million hectares of land through its Green Bond project.
Back in Abuja after 2 days of talks on advancing Great Green Wall objectives in Nigeria, President Buhari must be a satisfied man. Nigeria has been able to reel out achievements it has made to play its part in checking desertification on its lands. The United Nations, acknowledging the progress made, is giving conditions that must define its collaboration with member countries on this project.
If you permit me, I would say there's perhaps 4 or 5 issues that are important to this. The first is the importance of the governance structures at the local government where one wants to make the investments in each and every one of these countries. The second is a focus on land restoration, and land restoration that has a focus on the economic activities, the capacities particularly of young people and of our women at the community level to engage with these investments that will come to that level.
The target is to fulfill the nation's forest cover to 25% to fulfill a pledge made at the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2019. This will require planting 25 million trees towards achieving restoration of degraded forest reserves and other landscapes nationwide. The Nigerian government hopes to partner with the World Bank and has expended enormous resources to establish agricultural development programs in all 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory.
I therefore call on you, especially the World Bank, African Development Bank, and the One Planet Summit Initiative to support this drive. So going forward, I kindly request your commitment to support this initiative. B, I also invite you collectively to set up a task team to work with PAGGW in this direction.
The message of this summit may be lost on many Nigerians who are fixated on their harsh economic realities, but the message goes beyond Nigeria's border and insists that the international community must demonstrate enough political will and commitment towards the realization of the pledge to restore 1 billion hectares of land by 2030. This will no doubt save humanity from starvation and preserve the planet for future generations. Kehinde Amudu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Kehinde Amudu, for that report. Now we'll take a short break. When we return, the show continues. Please stay.
But in a situation where you find that a look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. Now we have joining us the Director of News, Voice of Nigeria, Ben Shema, in the studio to review some of the stories on our front pages this time around. We'll take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper again, and this time it says also that ahead of the APC primaries, campaign governance compete for attention. You'll also see the riders that says Osinbajo, Amechi, Onu, Ngige. Others battle for delegates. 8 collecting allowances from government. And also government has literally fallen apart, according to Kari. The stories above the headline says primaries, INEC, that's ahead of the lead story. Primaries, INEC rejects party's request to extend deadline by 2 months. Why turnaround maintenance failed to bring refineries to life, according to the NNPC. On easy calm, as PDP NEC takes decision on zoning today. That's on page 13. And then at the very bottom there, ASU strike, 2009 agreements unrealistic, says the Senate President. Court nullifies FG's sales of recovered assets. Train attack. 1 week after Buhari's directive, victims' families yet to get updates. So you recall that we had an interview with one of the family members here, and he said he was very optimistic and he was hopeful and looking forward to this meeting and engagement. You know, the president gave that directive about minute-by-minute updates.
In fact,
for the family members.
That directive is over a week now.
It's over a week.
Yes.
And from what we can confirm is that there haven't been
anything between them
engagement with the family members. So you wonder what's happening. The president, commander-in-chief, has given a directive. And this is not the first time that the president will give a directive and we do not see it materialize.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, we do not know. All right. That's that for Daily Trust newspaper.
Let's take a look at the Punch newspapers. The lead story on the Punch says, Jonathan's backers seek consensus. Southern APC aspirants disagree. Then it has a rider there that says 28 presidential aspirants obtain forms as sale ends. We have Jonathan's candidacy tough to sell. That is coming from Governor Umahi. We also have the story here that says bank loans to government rise to 16.32 trillion, says the Central Bank of Nigeria. Then there's also the story here. 2023, INEC insists on June 3rd as 18 parties demand primaries deadline extension. Obasanjo Adebayo supports Southeast presidency, says Ohaneze. We also have a story here that says Akeredolu plans 350 additional men, operational vehicles for Amotekun. It's a long time we heard anything about Amotekun. Then there's also the story here. Federal government also resume talks on Monday. Students continue protest. Refineries probe. Reps kick as Kyari keeps mum on oil swap deal. Then, of course, the story, Senate amends Electoral Act, reps reconvene today. So that's about the major stories on the Punch newspapers.
All right, so let's get perspectives on this too now. Thank you again for joining us on Daybreak, Mr. Ben Shema.
Thank you very much. My pleasure as usual.
All right. All right, now, quite interesting that we are seeing that political parties are already requesting and appealing to INEC to extend the deadline the June 3rd deadline as earlier scheduled based on the timetable that INEC has rolled out. And that's, of course, taking into consideration the new electoral act. And now we are seeing this. But though INEC has said, no, we are not extending that. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. There's a limit as to how and when a student should tell the teacher, look, this is the date I want for my examination, and this is the time it should be. The teacher has the authority, except otherwise some unnatural occurrences would happen. Some very big mishaps could happen that could trigger INEC to make some shifts. Because if you do that, they begin to toy with INEC. INEC is an authority in itself. It has to conduct elections, and that's why right around May 4th, it said, look, the date of June 4th or something is sacrosanct. We're not going to change anything. Ensure you've done your primaries. But these people are busy extending sales of forms and just making money and smiling to the bank in the name of politicking. So I think that INEC, I want them to be very, very firm in that. And of course, when we're talking of government has been left, governance left, all they do is campaign when indeed the real campaigns have not started, because INEC has not released a timetable for campaigns. And now they hide under consultations. Consultations when indeed the nation needs so much attention. Attention should be given to governance because insecurity is there. We are still waiting for us to have succor. We're talking of, see ASU versus the students versus the federal government. When the students are saying, look, if action is not taken, we're going to occupy federal roads. They said 3 hours to test run the system, their strike, and thereafter they occupy airports, they occupy the National Assembly. I think it's a thing that the government should take seriously. NSA started with just one man, and of course you saw the end result. But thank God the National Assembly is saying they are going into it. But I think that the waiting game has been so long, lasting. 2020, for example, that universities were closed for 9 months. Now this year, they've closed for 3 months, and they said it was a kind of a testing ground.
Now
they've decided it's now indefinite. And so it's a very big thing that says a lot concerning us, and that's why we're hearing that some Nigerian students that would want to go for masters abroad, the universities are saying, look, for this number of months you've been out of school, and see the class of a degree you have. What did you cover to warrant this? And of course, to them, they will not measure very well over there. So that tells you there is something wrong with us. And when you look at even when they said grading of universities globally, they said the Nigerian universities, look, they are just down the bottom over there. So a lot has to be
Mr.
done
Sherman,
as opposed to these campaigns going on.
Yesterday, the Senate President said that the agreement is not realistic. Now, ASU is going into a meeting on Monday. The government is already saying the agreement is not realistic. Do you see anything tangible coming out of that meeting?
Well, you see, you cannot be going for negotiations and you're already saying this is my standpoint. The agreement reached some years back are not realistic. You can hold on to that and go to the negotiation table and bring your arsenals, explain to them. But when government is rigid, ASU is rigid, of course there's no compromise.
But you know, how many times will these negotiations happen, before we see the last of it? Because the December 2020 negotiation, has been agreed upon, right? And all that was needed, all that was, to happen is the implementation. And let's not forget that that December 2020 was when, the world over, countries were already recovering from the impact of COVID-19. So There is no excuse to say, oh, it's because of COVID that we now have to go back on our decisions. Already, COVID had happened at that time, so we already knew what was in place.
Exactly.
Right? So why is the implementation taking this long? That's one of the concerns of ASU, that we had an agreement in 2020. To implement it, now you are setting up again another committee. For what?
Yeah, you see, circumstances probably are changing.
What has changed?
For example, what's the inflow of your money? How much is entering into federal coffers? I'm not
if
speaking
anything,
for the government,
from December 2020,
I'm not speaking for the government, but there are also realities on ground where we've seen government cutting cuts here, cutting expenditure here and there.
But if government took that decision in the wake of COVID-19 at that time, with the way things were, and with the way things now, what you are saying is that there hasn't been any improvement from 2020 till now. Instead, we have seen decline.
Absolutely. I mean, like I was saying, where is your inflow of money, especially the hard currency coming into this country to stabilize the country? Look at the way the dollar is just rising and rising. The naira is nosediving.
Mr. Shaman, before you continue, as a follow-up to his own, based on what he said, that now goes back to some allegations by certain people that when government signs its agreement with ASU, it doesn't sign it with the intention of implementation. It signs it at that point to get ASU to go back to school. It doesn't think, okay, after 6 months, 3 months, what next? What do you say to that?
And of course, you see, that's why some people will say ASU strike is always an annual ritual. And when government was also saying no pay, no work policy was going to be adopted, it has never happened. In spite of their long stay out of the lecture halls, they will still be paid. For God's sake, I think that the two sides...
But they haven't been paid in the last 2 months.
Well, but they have not resumed either. And I think that when they do resume, they will be paid their money. But that is really not the ideal thing. We expect that people, stakeholders in this country should come on board and resolve this crisis. If the students are actually saying they're going to disrupt primaries and occupy the venues, if hoodlums just join the students, it's not going to be good at all.
So what are students supposed to do at this point? Well, are they supposed to just keep sitting around at home and just praying and hoping that someday the strikes will be called off?
Students do constitute what you call a pressure group, and what they are saying is already a pressure, and that's why the National Assembly just yesterday called them for some roundtable discussion. But what I'm also saying is that the two sides, excluding the students, the ASU should always bend a bit, the federal government bend a bit. If you know some agreements are not going to work or they are not workable, please say it exactly at the negotiation point so that you don't just sign things you cannot implement.
Exactly. That goes back to what I said earlier. It appears that government keeps signing some agreements, not with the intention of implementing. He just signs because he says, oh, ASU has been at home for 2 months, let's just do this thing and let these people go back to the classroom. Forgetting that the day of reckoning will come back, maybe in a month's time or 2 months, and then ASU will come back again.
Absolutely, in a mono economy. Is it the solid mineral where indeed bandits are driving people away from mining? You still have to go back to petrol. And where's the petrol? Your refineries, look at how much was sunk into turnaround maintenance. Only for the management to tell the National Assembly, look, there are reasons why the turnaround maintenance is not working. And money has gone down the drain. It's also time for the National Assembly to do its oversight function properly, who indeed is being taken to court. You cannot continuously be fetching water and be pouring it into a well. So what happened? You want to fill in the well. You cannot continuously be fetching water and try to save them in a basket. It doesn't work that way. People get promoted in NNPC because, I mean, in terms of annual performance evaluation reports, you see that people are said to be, gurus in administration in NNPC. They've been able to do this, but the refineries, we need this. Look, pay attention at least even to just one refinery, and we'll get out of this quagmire.
Another, the concern now is that with all of these things happening, the focus, these days has been more about politicians campaigning, traveling from one state to another, meeting this person, meeting
buying
that person.
farms.
Meanwhile, on the other hand, we are dealing with issue of fuel scarcity. The aviation sector is in crisis right now. Forget about the suspension of the strike. I mean, it's likely to come back to us again because the 418 naira per liter of aviation fuel that has been agreed upon by the stakeholders to be supplied
to for 3 months.
Is only for 3 months. So I mean, it doesn't look like we've found a solution, like a lasting solution to this. Now, that's on one hand, as far as petroleum is concerned. So on the roads, it's not looking good. In the air, it's also not looking good. And let's not forget, too, that we are talking about families of people that have been abducted, right? And they've been in custody for months, weeks now, and despite the directives, nothing is happening. So these are issues that Nigerians are dealing with directly. But all we hear about is, oh, this person has picked a 100 million naira form, that person has picked a 100 million form, oh, good luck is not going to be joining APC or not. And these are the conversations. No one is really talking about, the real concerns. And I mean, just yesterday we also heard that the families of these victims are also calling for the resignation of the Minister of Transportation. Now, that applies to the Minister of Education too, who is also picking the same form. Don't you think that we have a moral burden here that we need to deal with?
Absolutely.
And that the focus is not really given where it's needed?
There's a big moral burden. Now, look at even the proposed legislation, whereby if a family is kidnapped, as the case with the railway families, and they go pay ransom, they are guilty. The kidnappers are guilty. I think we are there's this big burden on the masses. In the midst of all of this, you imagine the petrol marketers, they're saying, look, all is not yet well, oh. We are not being paid in terms of bridging, in terms of transportation, in terms of freight and all that stuff. And therefore, to them, they were going to down tools, and it's going to be indefinite. There's a limit as to how some unions will just wake up and also feel this is the best time to take a pound of flesh on the masses.
Do you really think that they just, Mr. Chairman, do you really think they just wake up and say, this is the time to take a pound of flesh? Is it possible that they have been talking, they have used other means, and there was no result, and then they decided this is the only way out? Like yesterday, we were speaking to the chairman, ASU chapter, University of Abuja, and he said clearly that strike appears to be the only language the government understands.
Well, if that is the choice in Nigeria, where indeed doctors will also go on strike with patients who are supposed to be operated upon in theaters, doctors will just go on strike. And some people say, even, like in Ukraine, doctors will not go on strike in that kind of a situation. But in Nigeria, when there are emergencies, of course, doctors and paramedics will just go on strike. I think that when it comes to some key issues, saving lives, at a point we should look at that. But having said so, like I was saying, tell me if there's no moral burden that ASU is on strike. Minister of State for Education, I mean, has walked like a king with some nice regalia to buy a form. He wants to be president of this country. Look at Minister of Labor and Employment. I mean, he has also bought the form. At the point, you begin to wonder, what do you want to govern? The human beings? Yes, when indeed, in terms of negotiation, you have not delivered. And of course, it's a big burden, Stella.
All right,
Nigerians should... Yes.
I want us to look at now other stories on the, this day newspaper, for instance, also have similar stories to the ones we read earlier. APC ticket, Jonathan gives conditions, sale of forms extended to May 12th. You also have other stories that have been making the rounds. Carry, why Nigeria's refineries are not working, says rehabilitation on the way. The same refineries that we've been talking about. It assures that 2.8 billion liters of petrol available and sufficient for 48 days. Yet we are seeing long queues in our filling stations.
The last time the fuel scarcity lasted for 2 months, the NNPC kept on telling us that they had about 300 million liters.
So if it's one thing to have in store, and it's another for us to see it in the filling stations. And it appears
the only problem is not having it in store. There's a problem with the marketers complaining that there's a particular money they are supposed to be paid and all of that, you know.
For bridging, for transportation, for carrying the fuel here and there to consumers.
Yeah. So more stories now. Presidency to Clark. Babalola, no tenure elongation for Buhari. That's definitely in response to the calls for the president to be given more time to fix the security situation, and of course the call by Afe Babalola for the interim government to be set up. And then you have also court gives PDP 4 days to respond to suit against primary. And that's that for this day. The Guardian newspaper also leads with political stories. Again, it says 2023, PDP may dump zoning as NEC meets over autumn report. It has the writers that says concerns mount over appointment of Convention Planning Committee. Court orders speedy hearing of suit challenging PDP's primary. Umahi, if Jonathan joins APC, it will be one of the wonders of this country. Century rather, not country. So wonders of the century. That's how Dave Umahi puts it. Well, at the last there at the bottom there, you see tenure extension. I will hand over May 29. Next day, Buhari replies, Clark. And then you have Cole debunks Wike's $50 million fraud allegation. And you have also Dagogo face fresh charges to take plea May 16. These are some of the stories on the front page of The Guardian this morning. And then if you take a look at the Leadership newspaper, again, it also has some political stories. This time it says, Senate amends Electoral Act, makes president, governors, others statutory delegates. Also at the top, at the very top above the masthead, it says 2023, Southwest, South-South aspirants betraying Southeast. That's Dave Umahi. Nance gives federal government ASU 9 days to open varsities. And then fuel scarcity extends to northern states. May 29 handover is sacrosanct, says presidency. Chidima confessed to drugging, stabbing, killing Ataga, police tell court. These are the stories on the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning. Now, the issue about the statutory delegates is the lead story there on the Leadership newspaper. How did that even happen? We're hearing that it is an unwanted error. You know, unintended error.
That was the word.
Yeah, during the amendment of the Electoral Act. And now the lawmakers have to go back to it. And this is just 19 days to party primaries. So we can actually amend laws in 19 days in Nigeria.
Absolutely. How long did it take for Nigeria to make the law against same-sex marriage? It was just within a week, and it was signed into law. Where there is a will, I mean, it is doable. And of course, these statutory delegates, if the law is silent about them, of course, someone can go to court and say, tell me where they said the president should participate in primaries. Tell me where the vice or any person so elected, or even party officials, national working committees of all the political parties. Once it is not enshrined in the Constitution, and the Constitution is just silent about it, of course, it becomes illegality. And that is why some people have seen that gap, that lacuna, to say, let us seal it. Therefore, enshrine.
But I'm curious that when it comes to lawmaking, sometimes certain bills, they take like forever. And you wonder, why is it so difficult to make those changes? You know, some of them have taken as much as 20 years to come into, fruition.
Especially the petroleum industry bill.
Exactly. So you kind of wonder, we can have such a speed, but when it comes to certain issues, it lags, in the chambers.
Now you see, it affects them directly. Today, politics has overshadowed any other thing. Look at the story about Goodluck Jonathan. No, Miati Allah bought the form for him. No, it's a group of Almajiris and their associates that bought the form. Which means, well, Jonathan maybe is that lucky that up north he's the preferred candidate. If that is true. In fact, and if that is also true, Stella, that also tells us that the unity that we are lacking up north, down south, of course, maybe Jonathan is the rallying point. Good luck to them. Again, Nigerians would decide. And when people begin to say, let us have an interim government, for God's sake, are we not tired of just laying foundations, scattering them? Let's start another foundation. Why are we just some motions without actually moving to we are just shaking ourselves without moving to any direction? We should move forward positively instead of this interim government. When people wake up, oh, Buhari, there's room for you to go at that time, there's room for you to extend your tenure. It's because of what those people intend to get. Now, the president, not once, not twice, has always been saying, May 29 next year is sacrosanct. He's going to leave because the Constitution says he should leave. And he said even if the Constitution does not say so, that is his own time that he's going to leave the State House.
Okay. I don't want you to go too far. I want us to go back to the Jonathan issue. Some papers are saying that Jonathan has given the APC conditions. And then, in the same vein, we hear the governor of Ebonyi State, who is also a member of the APC, in fact, a chieftain of the party, saying that if Jonathan were to run on the platform of the APC, to be a wonder of the world. In fact, he went further to say that if that happens, it means that the Guinness Book of Record has a space for more documentation. What do you say to that?
Well, I'll classify him and Jonathan as being in the same trend. When did he join the APC? It was also one of the wonders. You join, and of course, you want lawmakers.
Well, former President Goodluck Jonathan hasn't yet joined.
Well, if he says there are conditions, it means if APC and some other people are willing to fulfill his conditions, he goes, which also means he's not saying no. Even though we are seeing one of his very great supporters, Reno Omokri. He said, no, it's going to be a mockery that the president would accept that. See, former president will accept that. There are times speakers, if we are speaking for someone, the person has taken a decision in his innermost self. And you, because he has not briefed you, you'll be dreaming in the past and still saying it's not going to work. And that will shock you. At the point you begin to eat the humble pie, you lick the vomit you did in public.
Well, one of the papers also reported that the condition the former president is giving the APC is that he wants to be the consensus candidate.
So, if at the point we had how many people jostling, who just jostled for the position of national chairman of APC, and of course they were always going to the president, give us solution. We have reached a roadblock, and the president said, okay, there are three ways: indirect primaries, direct primaries, and consensus. So consensus, I stand, and that was it. So if Jonathan is saying, oh, in that case, I don't want to contest primaries with anybody, and APC then says yes, or the leadership says yes, of course, that's the stand of the party. After all, they are selling some forms and attaching some papers, and you sign there that you have voluntarily resigned from, withdrawn from the rest. And some people are questioning that aspect. And you are seeing it. You have paid 100 million, and they are saying you have withdrawn, you have signed. All of them are supposed to sign. That is if they all have signed. And if you don't sign, it also means that you not contest. And there are some other conditions that you must not take the party to court. You must not bring faction. You must ensure that you resolve internal crisis without going to court at all. So all sorts of conditions are laid down.
What some people are saying is that the former president coming to give the condition of being a consensus candidate may not be morally right, considering that he just about to enter the party. That's if indeed he's entering. There are some people who have been there since inception. In fact, they were parts of the formation of the party.
Well, you see, if you've met Jonathan to create a kind of a niche where he is the one to determine when and where to go and the position you want and the condition in which, because you feel he is the one you want, of course, he will not just walk into that place. You've given him a very blank check to fill whatever amount he wants. Therefore, it's never a bad thing politically if Goodluck Jonathan will use it as his own bargain chip. So it's now left for Nigerians. Is it really true? People are waiting to see if APC will actually give that ticket. Again, if you give him, maybe a PDP will now congratulate you again. Once again, a member of our diaspora from PDP, Goodluck Jonathan, Adamu Abdullahi, and the rest, all former PDP, are now officials of APC. And of course, APC is also saying, check your own PDP. Our own former members are within PDP. So this is Nigeria, this is politics, and of course, they are politicking. This is their period, and that's why a law to amend the constitution, tinker with it, can come within the very short time because it affects them.
Okay. All right. Now, I want you to talk about these statutory delegates. These statutory delegates we're talking about councillors, we're talking about local government chairmen and their vice, we are talking about the lawmakers, of both state and National Assembly. We're talking about governors, deputy governors, president, and even the vice. So how do you think that this will have an implication on the party primaries that is going to be held?
Absolutely. If you check the other controversial section, 84 sub 12, that was saying political appointees must not participate in primaries. So it follows that those elected must be the ones to participate in primaries, to vote for or be voted for. For example, a councillor is not appointed, he's elected. Therefore, he is a statutory member. He's a standing member. If you go to local government chairmen, of course, they are elected, except those who are doing the undemocratic things, because you find some states who indeed are appointing caretakers. So if you appoint caretakers, they are not elected.
So in that
at that
case,
point, someone will go to court.
In that case, is that person a political appointee?
Of course, they are political appointees.
Right.
They are political appointees.
So does it mean that the person can vote in this election? Because
No,
he's a
not
caretaker.
elected.
He's a caretaker, or a chairman of a local government, and in this case, even though he's not elected, but he's a chairman of a local government.
Yes, but look at it.
But the
Caretaker.
provision.
Sometimes they say sole administrator. You cannot have when there was a state of emergency in Plateau, a sole administrator, Chris Mohammed Garba was appointed, I think that's the name. He was appointed to be sole administrator of Plateau State. He was not elected. And many other things politically, commissioners, everything collapsed that way. He was the lawmaker, the executive, and all that stuff. So when you have a situation in a certain state where you have a local government as a sole administrator, not elected by the people, of course, He is an appointee. And going by section 84, subsection 12, he is not capable of being a standing member to go to elect people. He is not. He falls under appointees.
Do you think that this gives room for some kind of manipulation? Because I'm seeing that perhaps this strengthened the governors to have their way in the political parties.
Yes, it strengthens democracy, I'll put it this way, because a situation where, look at today, governors have just one year to go and some few days. You now go and organize elections for local government councils to last for 3 years. Meanwhile, you've been there for 6 years, you've not organized elections. Every time you appoint caretakers, sole administrators, all sorts of adjectives to qualify positions they occupy, supervisory councillors appointed and all that stuff. So now you have it that those elected either at political party level, then local government council level, then you go to the state government, governors, deputy governors, then the officials of the political parties. These are the people being taken care of by this provision as we have today. But a situation where you also have just, say, a minister. A minister cannot, because he's appointed.
Right. Okay, but
commissioners cannot, because they're appointed. SAs cannot, because they're appointed.
But I was just wondering, though, in these states where there are no elected chairmen, no elected councillors, doesn't that mean that the delegates from those areas will be fewer?
Well, you see, very soon you see the senior advocates, I mean, wearing their silk to go and challenge some provisions and some activities of governors, especially when it comes to this provision. And of course, like we are saying, if they so do, it is to entrench democracy. Let us learn to follow this law. Look, you are not supervising local governments like running a shop or a business center. It's a tier of government. Therefore, it is a subsystem of an entire system. Federal, state government is resembling the federal, as local governments are resembling the state government. Therefore, it's wrong for the federal government to just administer state governments or states anyhow because they have federal might. In the same vein, state governors cannot wake up and load it on our local governments. Today, vouchers for local government workers or council will have to be done at the state level. No, even collection of market rates, you see state governments intervening. You want to do some feeder roads because governors are controlling the monies meant for the local government. You see that they will determine, hey, local government chairman, all of you meet, let's meet. Let me know what really you want to do. We want to rehabilitate so bridge in so community. That is when the government will just drop something for you. When indeed they ought to have the money they are given, federal government releases here in Abuja. And like we said the other time, when we have the Freedom of Information Act, we expect people to question even the local government chairman. Okay. See on paper, this is what Federal Ministry of Finance releases. Right. And of course, this is what you collected. We want to know the disbursements. Okay. How was it received? Where is the account? How much is left in this account? I mean, we should be able to continue to hold our people, elected officials, to account for their deeds and inactions so that we can move forward.
All right. I want us to take a short break now, and then when we come back, we'll continue with the discussion here on Daybreak. Please stay with us.
Daily, we bring you updates around politics.
People like you who are very young, you have no future. Anybody now who is 30 years, if what is happening to them continues, by the time you are 60, you will have no country.
The DPO of a particular unit does not have to wait until the commissioner tells him what to do within his jurisdiction.
We have political parties on the ground. Some of them have been there for years. But they themselves, in their own sober moments, they know that this country is not the one they're expecting to run.
Policy and governance
Are you saying the NBS is lying?
I'm saying to you very clearly that the NBS has a serious problem with accurate data till today.
The 5th Assembly, as well as the 7th Assembly, their own attempt were unproductive.
Emergence of the Taliban has simply emboldened terror groups globally.
There is a lot of attention with regards to security developments in Nigeria.
On Daily Politics, we interrogate issues, holding the actors to account, bearing in mind all the sides.
We heard that in some places now, people have to go and pay tax, not to the local government, not to the state, but to criminals.
Nobody can come to your house and kidnap you without information.
If this country is bleeding, it is bleeding because we have failed to educate our young.
Jama'a ga wata muhimmiyar sanarwa, hukumar raya birnin tarayya Abuja da haɗin gwiwar dukkanin harɗawa shugabannin rigage na Fulani da ƙungiyar Miyatta Allah reshen birnin tarayya Abuja dukkaninsu suna bayyana damuwarsu akan yadda waɗansu mutane suke sakin shanu suna kiwo sakaka a birnin tarayya Abuja. Don haka hukumar raya birnin tarayya Abuja da ta kare muhalli ta birnin suna sanar da dukkanin al'umma tare da gargaɗi akan cewa an hana kiwo na shanu da sauran dabbobi da tsuntsaye a cikin birnin domin suna haddasa bata muhalli da kuma cunkoson ababen hawa a cikin wannan birni. Saboda haka duk wanda aka samu ya karya wannan doka zai fuskanci hukunci, kasancewar akwai gurin da hukumar raya birnin tarayya Abuja ta ware domin kiwo a cikin su. Don haka tabbatar ka bi doka ka kuma haɗa hannu da hukumar raya birnin tarayya Abuja domin tabbatar da tsaftar wannan birni. Wannan sako ne daga hukumar tsaftace muhalli ta birnin tarayya Abuja.
For staying with us, and if you're just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. We are looking at stories on the front pages of our newspapers, and we have the newspaper reviewer in the studio, the director of news, Voice of Nigeria, Ben Shemang, talking to us about some of these stories. Now, let's take a look at the Nigerian News Direct. It leads with the story about fuel scarcity, saying 500 billion naira transportation claims. 500 fuel scarcity looms nationwide as marketers threaten to shut down operations. We have even heard, Ipman say that Nigerians should brace up for the worst fuel scarcity ever. So when you hear things like that, you kind of wonder, it gets scary. Of course, other stories about ASU strike. Senate will bring back FG ASU to negotiating table, and that's according to Lawan. Insurance policy, IGP restates commitment to better welfare for police officers. May 29 handover date is sacrosanct, according to the federal government, which is reacting to the call by an elder statesman, Robert Clark, for the president to be allowed some more time in office to deal with security issues beyond his second tenure. But I want us to talk about this fuel strategy and this claim of 500 billion naira transportation claim. We have heard different reasons as to why we are experiencing this fuel scarcity again. The NNPC initially said that, well, it's because of the long holidays that we just came back from, and that there is high demand for the commodity in the country. And then on the other hand, we've had marketers also said it's about logistics, and so on and so forth. So various things. And then this 500 billion naira transportation claim again. What's your thoughts about what's happening now with regards to fuel scarcity?
Too many factors we've been hearing from the NNPC. At the point they said there was a kind of, some petroleum products that are contaminated. So at what point were those ones drained, and where do they throw them away when we're talking of environmental impacts here and there on actions and inactions? At the point they said, no, there were sabotage activities, blasting of some pipelines here and there caused that. Now we're hearing from IPMAN, Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, saying government owes them. And these transportation claims, you see, we are not yet using the rail system. If we were using the railway, you see, in terms of haulage, one goods train can take as many quantity of petrol to the north. But we are still using the tankers. And if you are using the tankers, of course, the government does not own these petroleum, the tankers. So they are owned by individuals. So they help in bridging. They help in transportation. You can imagine, if fuel must reach Maiduguri from Lagos, how do you do it? If it must reach Zamfara with all the insecurity, how do you do it? And of course, you have to do it sometimes with a higher price, because doing business in uncertain situations will also take the prices very high because of uncertainty. Now, if I go there, my tank, the quantity of petrol inside the vehicle will be burnt a kind of. And so you can see that in terms of bridging, in terms of taking this fuel to filling stations, to depots, to this, of course, these are the things these people are trying to claim. They said they are being owed. And so how and why was it allowed to accumulate for this much is a thing that one cannot understand. So,
Mr. Chairman, that makes me wonder, what exactly is causing the fuel scarcity? Is it because they are owing them, or indeed because of the long holidays? Because if we're to go with what the GMD said, I mean, by the end of today, there should be fuel everywhere. But these people are also saying that we should brace off for a very tough period.
Yeah, you see, government, is the job of government to give you assurances, and you make the reasons to look very, very simplistic. There were, people moved away and went to holidays. Did they go to Ghana or England or something, and they are now back? Were the cars parked? No. At the point they say, schools resumed, and that's why consumption, people will have to take children to schools. It goes beyond all of this. Please let the refineries work so that we don't begin to shift blames all this while. We should not. And some people will say, we are going to have it better when Dangote refinery comes on board. What if Dangote had not started his own refinery? And of course, some people will be saying there is an option. Niger Republic built a refinery how many years ago? Some are saying, look, Nigeria can take its crude, go refine in Niger Republic and bring back to Nigeria. Even when you are bringing these things back, of course, you still have to use the independent marketers, because they have the tankers. They come in, they ferry in this product to various corners.
So this is
in
more
Nigeria.
like Nigerians are suffering more like a protest or a strike by the independent marketers. This is what is causing the
yes. If some people are saying that what makes some people to achieve what they want is to go on strike, if these people wake up to say, okay, we are no longer going to transport peak fuel, therefore Nigerians be ready to suffer.
It then makes sense then, since the NNPC boss is saying that there's over 2 million barrels of the product in store, right? And we are now seeing that there is scarcity. It means that transporting them from wherever they are being stored.
There is a problem with that.
That makes sense then.
Because the transporters are saying they will not carry them, and Nigerians. Yes. So this is also time for.
We would hold our thoughts there. Yes. We'll hold our thoughts there, and then take a look at the news highlights, and then come back to round up. Please stay. All right, it's top of the hour, 8 a.m., and we're going to take a look at The headlines again. Ayade joins presidential race ahead of 2023.
Jonathan not marketable for primary, says Umahi.
Buhari rejects call for tenure extension, vows to step down next year.
Now the news in details. Governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayade, on Monday expressed confidence that he will be the next president of the country. Speaking shortly after he received his nomination, an expression of interest forms purchased for him by sons and daughters of Cross River State, Arewa youth, as well as other interest groups across the country's 6 geopolitical zones, Ayade said he would replicate his successes as a state governor at the national level and help address the country's myriad of challenges. He said he will engage Nigerians on the basis of what he has done and not on promises or statistics that have no physical or verifiable evidence.
All right. Now, Governor Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State has expressed concern over the kind of messages the ruling All Progressive Congress will be telling Nigerians with former President Goodluck Jonathan as its presidential candidate. The governor spoke Tuesday while fielding questions from State House reporters after meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja to present a thank you letter from Southeast leaders to him following his recent visit to Ebonyi State. He wondered how the APC will reconcile its policies and promises with those of the People's Democratic Party, under which Jonathan was the president. He expressed worry that it will be difficult for the ruling party to campaign with Jonathan as its presidential candidate, adding that his entrance into the race for the APC presidential ticket will be germane in Nigeria's political landscape.
Now, in a related development, President Muhammadu Buhari has said there is no going back on leaving office after completing his constitutionally guaranteed tenure, emphasizing that the May 29, 2023 handover date is sacrosanct. Speaking through Malam Garba Shehu, his media aide, Buhari said the current administration will honor the Constitution and people's right to decide. His reaction follows the suggestions of Chief Robert Clark, a senior advocate of Nigeria, that the Constitution should be suspended for a new one. Clark had said the president could extend his tenure by 6 months if insecurity could affect the 2023 general elections. But the president said the suggestion on the need to suspend the Constitution might create crisis and instability.
All right, well, that's the reaction of the president as regards the calls for an extension of tenure to be able to deal with the issues of insecurity, and also a response to Afemi Babalola's. I mean, we've seen that response almost immediately after the statement about the interim government to be set up. But let's get also the perspective of our guest in the studio, our reviewer actually. What's your own thought about, this advocacy for the president to be given more time to deal with, issues of insecurity?
Honestly, I think that in 2015, if elections could be held, in 2019, if elections could be held, look at the situation that time. I think it could be done today. When I say today, I mean at this period. After all, elections will be in 2023, not 2022. And when people begin to do some double talks, look at the headlines concerning David Umahi, that former President Goodluck Jonathan is not fit for primaries. Is he saying that Jonathan is fit for consensus?
It's not marketable.
He said not marketable.
So, well, that is left to be seen, and that is just a one-man opinion. But still talking about insecurity and not holding elections, I think that it is flying a kite to psych Nigerians' opinions, to see how they're going to react. And I think that
but why do you think they're flying this kite? Because no long ago, Afe Babalola, who is also a senior advocate of Nigeria, just like Clark, said that we should have an interim government after the President Buhari's administration elapses.
Yeah, you see, the good thing is about our constitution. Chapter 4, fundamental human rights. They can express their opinions, but their opinion is a minority opinion when it comes to Nigeria. But the situation is never right that we should begin
But this opinion is coming from respected persons.
Is it really a minority opinion? Because if you had, in the past few years, there have been several calls, actually. In fact, there are people in this country that do not believe that this constitutional this constitution that Nigeria operates with is legitimate. Some feel that it is an illegal constitution in itself. So running by it in the first place is even a fraud. That's what they consider. And so his call for an interim government is so that the constitution will be overhauled and sort of start up Nigeria from scratch, from start, because major concerns raised is about the structure, of governance in Nigeria. That's the argument for Afe Babalola. So perhaps he's right. Don't you think so?
Well, he is right in his own opinion, but his own opinion is not the opinion of our majority. When you say...
No, how do you quantify, how do you determine that, really?
How do I determine that? I mean,
that
look at
his opinion is not the opinion of the majority.
People who indeed are opposed to that. And I want to tell you, if you say the constitution is a fraud because they said, no, it came from the military. The military didn't come from the sky. They are part of Nigeria. Of course, we have to accept them because what do? They came. They took power by force.
The argument is whether the constitution at the time formed by the military, some would say that it was, alongside some other civilians as well. So it's not solely what the military did. But the concern is as to whether the constitution as it is passed through the processes that a constitution should have passed through. Was there a referendum? Was there an agreement by the people to adopt this as the constitution? That's the argument. I remember an argument by the president of the Ohaneze Ndibo, or is it the former president of Ohaneze Ndibo, where he said at the time he was Minister of Information, and he recalls that he didn't even get to see a draft copy of the constitution, even as at the time it was to be, adopted as the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So when you hear such things, it raises questions about the integrity, or I would say the integrity of the process that came up with that constitution.
As much as, before Mr. Chairman will answer, but as much as there's that line of argument, there are also some people that say that, fine, the constitution is faulty. Why didn't these people making this call make the call 4 years ago when there was no election coming, so that there was time, ample time to amend the constitution? You cannot say stop the country, just put a full stop on the country and say.
For as long as I remember, even before this administration,
because
I've had
this kind of call coming on the eve of an election.
A lot of people have said,
like the president said, it could cause instability, though. Don't you think?
Yeah, okay.
Well, leaving the constitution, is it not causing instability already? If you look at the agitations by, some people from other parts of the country, the constitution as it is already is causing such agitations that we are talking about.
Yes, but suspending it now?
Let me inject my opinion here. I cannot be so much annoyed with myself to the extent that I remove all my clothes and just throw away and move away.
Not to move away.
Just a moment.
He's talking about getting new clothes. He's not talking about just moving away naked. So he's talking about overhauling the constitution.
No, when you
on the eve of an election, it's
when
suspect.
you do interim government. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, and all that. Look, when the military was in charge, do you remember the role of NADECO? Do you remember the role of all civil organizations? Look, we want to go back to civilian rule, no matter what it is. Some will even say, look, no matter how good a military regime is, it is the worst form of government anywhere in the world. Therefore, Nigeria needed to go back to civil rule. And in spite of the imperfections, they were going to reach somewhere. And that was why the military drafted in some civilians, got in some of the military guys. And of course, look at the preamble. We, the people of Nigeria,
and that's the biggest argument. That's the biggest argument, that there was never a we. That the argument for those who are making that case is that there was never a we in the equation. Well, there was never a time that Nigerians actually came together and agreed that this should be the grand norm of its people. So
today
that's
the
the argument, basically.
Today the National Assembly is amending or tinkering with the Constitution to take charge of some people to be able to vote legally. Do you get it? Now, the National Assembly represents Nigerians, no matter what you call it. If you like, you say, I was not there, your representative is there, your senator is there. So when the military came on, I'm not standing in for the military, but I do remember that when this thing came on, you had the professors of Professor Yadudu, you have many others who I can't remember easily now, but they all were on ground trying to see that the Constitution came on board, a civilian kind of a thing, because Abdusalami never planned to be head of state. And it came just a moment, it came by just as circumstance. Therefore, if Nigerians are saying we want civil rule, he set free all political prisoners, including Obasanjo, so that we can now have a constitution. And that being the case, all the military administrators that time, each had a state. I mean, bearing military, they make the law, they implement the law. Two functions
in concluding this, I'll just ask one question. That are you comfortable with the way the Constitution is at the moment?
I am not comfortable, but it is something we can manage and keep changing as we are doing. And I think that changing the Constitution is so slow because, I mean, look at when it goes to the state level. Governors are intimidating state assemblies not to accept these provisions. I mean, and of course, some speakers will feel they will lose their seats. So we have to keep on changing this Constitution rather than we just throw it away. Let's throw it away and start afresh. Just like I gave you the example. You can't be annoyed with yourself. You throw away your clothes and now say, let me go to the market. You're going to the market naked? So we should have this imperfect Constitution so that we check where indeed if provisions are injurious to ourselves.
Some feel that it will never be possible to actually make the kind of changes that will bring growth, national growth and development for Nigeria as it is right now, which is why they are talking about this.
Are you aware that some people even question the holy books, that they are imperfect? So if they can question those books, who is saying they can't question the Constitution? Constitution is not sacrosanct, and that's why some people even say Nigeria is just a mere geographical expression. It doesn't exist. It's only a thing, a perception, a kind of. No, Nigeria exists physically with all sorts of boundaries measured. They are. And there are people living in that entity called Nigeria. It's not just a mere expression, no. So we have a constitution that we can rely on. We are depending on right now. Those of them saying it's not a perfect constitution, arrest them today. Let them last 4 days without being taken to court. They say the Constitution says you should be taken to court within 48 hours. They are making do with that very Constitution. And so I think that we can. Yes, it is imperfect. In terms of restructuring, in terms of resource control, in terms of appointments, federal character, quite a lot of things will have to be reworked. And you can do that via the Constitution that has given you a definite entity called Nigeria, giving you a president, giving you a National Assembly, the judiciary to take care of our rights and listen to our complaints as the last hope of the common man.
Okay,
so I think the Constitution, yes, should be there, but could be amended.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll end this at this point. We appreciate you coming on Daybreak today to share your perspectives with us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with the Director of News, Voice of Nigeria, Ben Sherman, giving us perspectives on some of the stories on our front pages and issues of national concerns indeed. For now, we'll take a short breather, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at other discussions on the program. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, welcome back. That was a very interesting discussion by our newspaper reviewer for this morning, Mr. Ben Sherman.
True. The argument will continue, I believe.
I agree with you, especially, you know, because this cause will not stop. So
it won't stop.
The argument
is as old as Nigeria itself.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to take our second discussion, and it's on security. Today, we're looking basically on Zamfara and Kaduna State. At least 55 persons were reportedly killed in separate deadly attacks by bandits in two local government areas of Zamfara State last weekend. This, however, is not the first time the bandits have openly attacked communities and villages, killing residents and destroying properties. However, there have been reports of an alleged recruitment of locals by members of the Ansaru sect in small communities in Kaduna State. Daily Trust had exclusively reported that members of the terrorist group commenced massive recruitment of residents around communities in Birnin-Gwari local government area of Kaduna State, adding that the terrorists distributed Salah gifts in the form of biscuits, performed motorcycle stunts to the delight of villagers, and distributed pamphlets, flash discs, and other accessories on the activities of the group. We are now to look into this. We have an American, a retired a security expert and retired U.S. Army Captain, Beach Johnson, to join us. He's joining us virtually. Good morning, Mr. Johnson, good morning. We have this, not necessarily new, but this sect in Kaduna State that is now, you know, trying to work its way into the minds of the people by making itself acceptable, and then that way it now finds the community is very habitable. What do you say to that?
Okay, it appears,
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson's network is freezing.
It appears.
Yes,
okay.
You can go ahead.
Please go ahead.
It looks like technical hitch there, but I think that video emerged on social media where, you know, some of these members of the Ansaru were performing those stunts, using motorbikes, and also I think I saw a bottle of cokes being shared.
Yes, they shared
to the
biscuits.
local communities.
They shared biscuits, and they also shared their pamphlets, which contains their activities. You know what they tell the people, according to the Daily Trust exclusive report, was that they are not Boko Haram. So that's the first thing they tell them, even though they are a splinter group of the Boko Haram, but they tell the people, we are not Boko Haram, you know. And the most, the scary part of the thing is the fact that they tell the people that they are providing security for them, you know. The Daily Trust report even has it where some youth in that area are willing to join the group. And a particular guy said that he doesn't mind joining the group if only this group will protect him against bandits. Yes. He said that now he can, in fact, as it is at the moment, this group provides protection for some people in those communities to be able to go to their farms.
Wow.
Yes, exactly.
So complicating the issues further, isn't it?
Complicating the security situation in that
These are
place.
not state actors.
They are not. Yes.
This is a sect of the Boko Haram itself, and so it's more like the criminal coming in another way.
What I see is a vacuum. They saw a vacuum of leadership and they stepped in. Because like some persons that spoke to the Daily Trust correspondents, they said, okay, the last time the bandits came here, these Ansaru people protected us against them. You know, so these people are now warming themselves into the hearts of the people around that area, and that is very dangerous because they are non-state actors. They have an agenda, whether we like it or not. You know, in fact, one expert that was spoken to in the Daily Trust report said that is how it usually starts. He even said that the Boko Haram started that way, that they come that way, warm themselves into the hearts of the people, and then after some time they begin to tax the people. They begin to, you know, show themselves for who they really are.
Who they really are. Well, all right, we'll take a look at some more on this, but shortly after this break. Please stay with us. All right, thank you for staying out. While we try to reconnect with Bish Johnson, we also have joining us via phone another security analyst who is Jonathan Onoja to also give us his own perspectives on this particular incident. So thank you for joining us, Jonathan, on Daybreak this morning. Hello? Hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm there.
Okay, so thank you for joining us once again. Well, just a few days after we see this attack on the Zamfara community where over 50 people were said to have been killed, we are also seeing this splinter group of Boko Haram moving into some parts of Kaduna, and now where they are luring people into joining, you know, what they are doing in the guise of providing protection for them, you know, and also providing certain, you know, food items, things like biscuits, you know, Coke and the rest of them, doing some motorbike stunts, you know, in those villages. And it looks like, you know, the villagers were quite impressed with those things. And there's a concern there, isn't it?
Yes, there is a concern. If you ask me, I will tell you that there's a concern. Worry someone at that. We cannot continue doing the same thing, you know, and you expect a different result. Remember when we had the last incident around the Paradise, there were informations that, you know, the source of persons in the numbers of motorcycles parading themselves into a particular forest, all intercepted. So you see, there is no intelligence gathering around this activity. And then they operate freely. And when people paraded themselves into a particular village, large numbers of motorcycles, and, begin to distribute items to people, or without even having their address. Great houses, house to house, asking people, and then in fact, there are no intelligence around the Kaduna Iris. I must tell you that. It's a big concern, and unfortunately, the National Security Council is not doing anything about it.
Okay, but the thing is this, Mr. Noja, the thing is this Ansaru group has been in that area for a couple of years. So, is it that the security personnel are not aware of the presence of this group in that area?
No, this statement by the statement of the Islamic guy, the Gumi of this world. I said, look, our military knows where they are. And we will have any police officer or any authority or the army that have come out. So, it's not actually they know where they are. They know where they are. I think also a few days back, even one of the military guys was involved in the case of the banditry. So it's not actually they don't know where they are. It is because they are compromised.
All right.
They are compromised.
All right, Jonathan, from what I'm seeing here, it looks like it's even more than intelligence, it's more than even knowing about the location of these people. But there's a big question of ungoverned spaces that exist, within, some of these crisis-prone areas. We see a gap that the Ansaru groups or the terrorists are trying to take advantage of. This gap of providing security. We know, how certain places are just there. You hardly can see the presence of government there. You hardly can see the presence of security personnel there. So in this instance, what can we do to bridge that gap? There is a gap that exists. Our security officials can certainly not be everywhere in Nigeria, as it is right now. So how can that be bridged?
I have often advised, and like I said in my last interference on your station, you remember I made it clear that security are having often time that it is a cycle, isn't it? And we will need actors that are well attuned in this with this cycle to mitigate those challenges. Agreed. The security business cannot be everywhere. But where the ladies are concentrated, they are probably form part of security or part of the system. And when we talk about government, the government is what is you and I. So when you say the absence of government, it should be like the absence of human beings. There are no existence of human beings on those places. So it's not about
talking about administrative governance. I'm talking about, you say, for instance, in a village, of course, there should be councillors in different parts of those places. But how effective is the running of governance at that level? How many, say, for instance, police stations do we have? How many security posts? How many security posts do we have in some of these places?
The essence of community policy will come to be, because when you see that the natives will stand against certain things, when the natives begin to rise independent of their territory, they will have no other choice than to back them up. Like you said, in those villages or in those local wards, there are councillors too. And these councillors come part of the government, but you're telling me how effective it is. And that is why I said, it is not just about the villages, it is just about the people who are living in those villages to form the consensus and at the same time to come up with a strong commission and say, this is what we want. Because
they are almost helpless here. Let's not forget that these people are more like helpless because it's not like they're armed. And some of these bandits and terrorists, they come heavily armed. So, you know, even because of fear, even out of fear, some of them can just chicken in and just say, well, you are highly welcome to our community. You can live, we can live with you side by side as long as you are not going to harm us. And in this case, they are even coming with a message of, you know, protection, coming with the message of, oh, we can protect you against bandits that attack these communities. So you can see how dicey it is.
It is because few individuals living in those communities have colluded with those guys. You talk about the value, you talk about the informants, it is the same leaders, the same people living in the same community
Jonathan.
that are the informants. The informants
Jonathan.
from here or from wherever they're coming from. So because some individuals have compromised and then living in the society, they have got out option to welcome those things. But if the society has decided, or the community decided to, you know, take a strong position, they will have a backup of the government in full in essence. Because you see, the government we are looking at is the central government. And I have often said that the government is not going to come from the center. And that's why I advise the government, even like in this publication, leadership, that it is time for us to centralize our very centralized security system. Then we have to bring in the case of community policing, not only state policy. Because now you said these people came with the message of hope, the message of protection, police people so they can stay. But I'm asking the question that these people that are talking to them, they are not fools. It is because some individuals are really compromised, and they know that very well that when the people say no, what they are going to see is not going to be easy on them. So they start, if even though they say no today, some people will be telling you that, look, we have been trying to avoid this, but we trying to avoid this, but there was something that brought the people. That's not that brought the people in. There was an informal program of right there to communicate this guy when to come in and when not to come in. And if you are not there to stay for too long, it will become very difficult for you to eliminate them because they will have acclimated themselves in the society that you cannot even do, you cannot even know who is who. So it's the best time it is now for government to intervene. And that's why I'm calling the state government. Not even the federal government. What is the state government? What is everybody doing about it?
Okay.
And then people asking themselves, what is everybody, the governor of Kaduna State, doing about this situation? What is he doing?
Okay, Jonathan, just hold your thoughts there. Let's also talk to Lami Sadiq. Lami Sadiq is the bureau chief of Kaduna State for the Daily Trust newspapers. Good morning, Lami. Join us on Daybreak this morning. The last person, the security expert we're speaking to, he said something. He said that the reason this Ansaru group is able to stay in that community and do the things that they are doing is because the people of that area are conniving and colluding with them. Can you speak to that? Okay, so.
All right. Well, let's get this, because you know, if you say that the people in those communities are actually colluding with these bandits, it gives an impression as though the people are actually keying into the ideologies of what the Ansar group is saying, which may not necessarily be true, you know, and it may not be fair to people who are actually living in those communities, but because they look around and they see that it looks like there is no option, and if I disagree, my life is in danger here.
And the Daily Trust story was, I mean, very clear on that. The people in that area have like come under several attacks, you know, and it's because of the lack of any other help that they decided to accept this. In fact, some of the people that spoke to the Daily Trust correspondent made that clear. They said that, okay, we have waited and waited and there's no help. So these people are telling us this. They're protecting us from bandits and they're allowing us to go to our farms. So that is why. In any case, it appears Lami is back now. Lami.
Yes, just hold on. Kaduna to speak on the matter before you comment. So you can go ahead, Lami.
Lami, please go ahead.
That you don't find any government structure there, you don't have police stations there, you don't have community leaders as we know them to be in those communities. So these are people who have for years been subjugated, been attacked, been killed, been kidnapped, been forced to pay levies. These are non-state actors, and then these people Ansaru are offering one commodity to them that is, we can say that one commodity that is very, very scarce. So if these people are offering protection, people in those communities feel the need to, align with them in order to protect them from the bandits. So I don't want to believe it's true that these people are colluding with Ansaru.
Okay, would you say that this is a case of abandonment in this instance?
Well, in this instance, you look at it as it may not have all the details as to why security agents have not been able to move into these communities, to move into the forest areas to sack these bandits. Because what people in those communities have been emphatic about is that security agencies need to move into these places. If they don't know where these bandits or these terrorists are, we know and we can even direct them. So I think if you look at what the governor of Kaduna State has been saying, I think he has been projecting the minds of these people, saying that there is no way about it. What government needs to do is security agents need to move in there and bomb these forest areas. Birnin Gwari, particularly in Kaduna State, is one local government where we have
Okay. All right, well, we'll try to get Lami back to continue with her thoughts there. But Jonathan, if you are there, this has a semblance of the strategy that was used by Boko Haram in the northeast in the early days, especially in Borno State. Do you think that this is the same thing that is applying here? I said this story that we have, it has a semblance with what Boko Haram is doing in the northeast, particularly in Borno State in the early days. So would you say that this is Boko Haram shifting its address to the northwestern and maybe trying to find a base in Kaduna State?
I thank you for your observation and then your views on the matter. You see, it and then what did they do? They locate, dominate, and they eliminate. Are you me?
Yes.
They locate, dominate, and eliminate. From 2 days from now, you will be seeing that kind of operation within those areas. So it is better to resist them at the point of entry than approaching them. Approaching them is at the danger of humanity. Approaching them is tantamount to the destruction of the society. Approaching them is as good as supporting banditry, terrorism, and terror state. So this is the practice that they are bringing from foreign countries. They will locate, dominate, and eliminate. There is nobody in the same mind that wants to live with terrorists. There is no same mind that wants to live with bandits. There is no same mind that wants to live with the Boko Haram person.
Okay, now what would be the best approach for government to be able to deal with this? Because it becomes complicated. It becomes before you continue. Let me say that before you continue that we've had this concern raised by the president some time ago, just a few weeks ago, about the complexity of this fight, in the sense that it becomes difficult to deal with the brandists, to go frontally and attack them, especially when they are mixed up with innocent Nigerians in some of these villages and in settings like this. So what would be the best approach for the government to deal with this?
Okay, let me tell you something. 2 days ago, there were dislodged from the Abuja Kaduna train outlets. Some persons were dislodged from those places. Illegal inhabitants, supposed to be Boko Haram members. And the problem I have with this operation is that there should be follow-up. If you want the people you are dislodging, they're going to count this because it's within the same territory. Now, these guys that you see to be manning themselves or hosting their flags in those local communities is suspected, from my intel, is suspected to be these guys that were dislodged from those parts. It's the mixture of those guys and some of the groups from other places that you see them coming to introduce themselves in society. So you can tell that it's a nearby location that they can dominate and the leaders will begin to eliminate. So like you are asking, it is not just about losing confidence in government. The best way to attack the government. If you allow them to come and stay with you now, I am telling you, you are rather investing in criminality, banditry, and terrorism, which does not belong in any country or any society in the world. So to me, it is not because they are afraid. Like I said, someone showed the location, someone who is well known in society, it is made of this group. And that is the person I'm giving them the new way to say, come in, it is my thing. We can hold our flag here, we can say, don't come and begin the arrangement, the over time, we can try. So what I'm saying now is that the local government, the state government, and the federal government must do what is right at the matter of urgency to push out these guys now. Once they go after them, they will leave the good people and the bad people will run. I am telling you because for anyone that is bad is guilty of what people are going to do him already. So once he knows that people are coming for him or coming after him, he will leave. And I will know this with the community not to, for any reason, against any kind of insecurity in them things now. They know it is detrimental, it is against their future, and it is against their progress as a people.
Okay, Mr. Onoja, but what the Daily Trust Bureau Chief is saying is that the people of that area are actually ready to provide information about this group to the security operatives. But what they are saying is that they don't even see the security operatives. According to what she said, there are no structures there, no police stations, nothing. So in that kind of instance, what would these people do?
You see, I have said it over, I am going to reiterate it again, that where there are no institutions or government like the President of the Security like our buildings, the men that can serve the purpose is terms of community policy. Look, let me tell you something. I come from the village, and I don't be government of the village. I see people come in, people go that this is politics and this is time election is coming there and here and there. And you know what happened? Before you enter my community today, they will know your address. Where are you going to? Where are you coming from? It does not cost anything. The people around in the market women, sometimes they will get their food stuff, sometimes at the end of the month, some donate 300, 200 naira, and you have 500 naira to support the security aspect of the community.
All right, just hold your thoughts, Onoja, hold your thoughts while we get our Bureau Chief in Kaduna, Lami Sadiq, to also weigh in on this. Now, Lami, if you are there and you can hear me, give us a sense of the structure, in those communities, the structure in terms of governance in those communities, local governments, and then, maybe the local government secretariat. Is there any information about the councillors in those places, or maybe the local government chairman on what they have done on their part in partnership with the state government to be able to, deal with this?
Okay, you see, Birnin Gwari as it is as a local government you find normal activities going on there. But you find that we're having this challenge in some of those remote areas, like communities like
Okay, looks like we've
we've lost
Limey again.
Okay, Onoja, if you're there, please continue. You were talking about the fact that the people in that community have a role to play. Onoja. Yes, you were insisting that the people in that community have a huge role to play.
Yes.
Okay. Please continue.
Hello. Yeah, you may proceed. Just talk to us about, you know, what the community people can do on the part, like you've been saying.
The community view the situation because in my community, there are not even divisions. Before you get a division, you have to catch your minds. There's no police presence there. And then I approach the grand head. The need for the innovation of community policy. And then they bring in able young men who can at least do this job. Some of these women even with their boosters, some persons at the end of the month, they go like even 500 as soon as the community. And you cannot enter that community today without having an address, without having a destination. The people must know you. Whose house are you going to? And where are you coming from?
But you know, Onoja. But you know, Onoja. If I may interject, you are talking about an ideal situation, right? You are talking about an ideal situation where a stranger comes into the community. He will need to identify himself to the, the community, leaders and the likes. But this is a peculiar situation where you have a stranger this time around that is not asking of your permission to come in. You have a stranger that comes in armed.
And don't also forget that these people have no option. Or at least as things look, it doesn't look like they have options.
There are options, but something there's an enticing position there. There's an option. If you get to the root of the stories, you see some of them are even promising something, some are giving some items. Are you aware?
Do you know that in that situation, rejecting whatever it is that is coming, or appearing to be in disagreement with whatever message that they have brought, it means suicide. It means you, putting yourself in a dangerous position. It means that you are considered a threat and is likely to be eliminated. So
it is better to be known to an enemy to be an enemy than to be pretending to be friends when the situation is dicey. You better tell them that we don't welcome this culture. Let the society face the need of it at the moment and then save the larger society in the future. Than welcoming them, affecting them, and giving them what they shouldn't be giving. Because at this moment, they will come to stay with them, marry one or two persons, they will have to intermarry, and that is
okay, Onoja. Okay, now.
That we cannot live without today.
Okay, now, Onoja, the information is out there. This group is in these particular communities, and this is what they are doing. What is government supposed to do at this point to rescue the people in that region and decimate the group?
In place. They want to put modalities in place to change these excesses. And you see, the reason I am saying that it will become difficult for government to identify who is who is because the people must have gone inside the society, inside the community, had a big building there, settle down, live with these people, and it becomes difficult for you to now identify who is who. But if the community have rejected their offer, and it becomes an exchange of God battle, it becomes easier for you to identify the camp of the enemy and from the camp of victims.
All right. Okay.
So if is becoming difficult for government to identify because of the way and manner communities are beating these people and unnecessarily giving them the information.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan Onoja, for joining us on Daybreak this morning to talk about this. We highly appreciate it. Yes. Well, there you have it.
It's unfortunate we couldn't really talk to Lame because, you know,
I believe she has information. She has something to tell us. She was there.
They have spoken to some people in that area. They have seen how difficult it is to get to the place. They have seen how the lack of infrastructure, the lack of structure, the lack of governance, the lack of, you know, because this group is making use of the gap.
You know, if I may, this is just synonymous to abducting a whole community.
Exactly.
That's what it means.
And it's not just one community.
This is an abduction in another way.
A couple of communities there. You know, the part that really got me was when a young boy was saying that he doesn't mind joining the group as long as they can allow him go to farm. You even boasted that the last time bandits came, this group tackled them. And you know, like another expert said, this is just the preliminary. Very soon it won't be, even those people there will not enjoy the presence of the group anymore.
If you recall back in 2009, you know, that's why I was making reference to Boko Haram in the Northeast. You know, at a point, you have such situations where even when, you know, the security agencies after this Boko Haram, they are being shielded by some communities.
Because they see them like some form of savior.
Yes, they felt that they were not there to harm them and all that. Until when it was getting late and
tactics. They get in there, warm their ways into the hearts of the people, and you know.
And then begin to dictate and begin to be, you know, determine what happens in that place and take anybody's daughter.
If you ask me, I would say the state is sitting on a time bomb because there are allegations that the group was behind the bombing of the rail track, the recent incident where people were abducted, even though it's still unconfirmed, but you know.
Well, you cannot rule out a possibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's quite an interesting one. For those who are just joining and you've missed, you can always catch up on our YouTube page and also follow us across social media platforms. I'm talking Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and also Twitter. We can follow us there for all updates and on all the time. My name is Ayuba Ilya.
Thank you for spending this part of your morning with us. Do well to join us again, same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Stella Iyaji. Bye.
Bye.